the Riverfront Times, Chad Garrison. John Deal Jr. is out. Jay Kanzler's in for him. And Jane Dueker. Jane, you're up.
I wanted to talk about the hammer homicide down in the city. And,
yes, in the Bosnian community.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, the first thing that came to my mind was how personal and how just sort of depraved it is to kill somebody with a hammer in a group. And I found it extremely disturbing. I mean, to me, we've always had crime problems, but I thought this was a level of depravity that I think is sort of being brushed aside, which disturbs me. I mean, I know everybody wants to be occupied with Ferguson and everything else, and that seems to be where we get all the national media. So, but the idea that we've got young teenagers, killing people with hammers, and my understanding was, they tried to attack someone else first, another Bosnian. So the idea that this wasn't sort of a targeted attack, I am not ready to believe that this isn't racially motivated. And I think the idea that we're just going to say it's not just because we just don't want people to get upset is part of the problem that we're still dealing with in Ferguson. And why would we keep doing that? And so I'm extremely frustrated by that, because I think it's important that we realize that this isn't getting better, and we're seeing sort of symptoms and consequences of what's going on that are popping up everywhere, and so we can't just sort of brush that under the rug. So I'm a little and I'm not upset with the police response. They've listened to the people. They're going to put more patrols. I mean, I'm more concerned about the conversation about it, that we're not hearing people outraged by that, and to me, the idea that young teenagers, and we had the lawyer that got attacked by another group of young 12, 13, 14-year-old kids, who was horribly injured, and this sort of violence is popping up, and we need to address it.
It was certainly the most gruesome, shocking murder I can recall in St. Louis, and I agree with you that I'm surprised it didn't get more coverage. And I think a lot of the Bosnians in that community are frustrated about that. I mean, here we have all these international news crews here, and I mean, it did make some headlines, but I mean, it was a blip.
But it's horrific.
It was a blip. I don't know if it's, I want to believe that it's more like a crime of opportunity. I think these kids are out and just like gonna raise hell. Wherever, but it's Clockwork Orange, sick and depraved.
And it didn't seem to have any motive. I mean, has anybody read anything that this was a robbery or?
No.
It seemed to be.
It was a knockout game with a hammer.
Right.
That's what came to my mind too. Is there any motive for when they play the knockout game, or they go out and no? I mean, the idea is we're going to mess with people. That's what we're going to do. And you don't need a motive for that. The motive is to find someone and physically harm them.
I'll tell you, if we need a commission in St. Louis, I mean that would be a good idea to have a commission on this. Talking about commissions, like what is motivating this type of like violent crime?
Right.
That seems to be for no reason other than just for crime's
and a level
sake.
of anger. And so the police shooting, that's all in our lexicon. We think about we're seeing that happen, but this is like a whole psychological, sociological issue that I think is not even being looked at.
Well, there's the violence of the random act is more scary.
Right.
Whereas if you wake up and there's 3 people shot in a drug deal gone bad, you think, oh, well, they were doing something wrong.
It makes sense.
It's terrible that they were shot, but they were doing drugs.
It made sense.
This guy is with his fiancée, and protects his fiancée as he's killed in a hammer attack, which is why that Megan Boken Central West End story was so terrible when she was walking down the street on a Saturday afternoon and the guy comes up and steals her phone and kills her for her phone.
But that at least was even a robbery.
Right, but that's the tragic of it, is that this is just a total random act of violence.
I mean, I felt like I was watching an episode of Criminal Minds. I'm like, okay, well, where's the behavioral unit to come in and say, okay, we have a psychological sort of phenomenon here that we need to get a grip on.
But this
and they're young.
This goes to the anger and the level of frustration in the quote-unquote non-Michael Brown hands-up community. I'm not going to say the white community, because there are many African Americans who are upset with the level of crime. when they hold up signs, when the protesters hold up a sign saying Black Lives Matter, and then you have Letitia Williams get shot in the eye at a convenience store because she was getting good grades at Vashon, or you see all these other tragedies, these tragedies of these innocent African Americans who are struck down trying to do the right thing, and their only sin is that they live in a poor community. That goes to the level of frustration where people do not understand why this hammer attack didn't get more attention, why there aren't people protesting in the street. And yeah, it's terrible what happened to Michael Brown, but the larger story is that society is failing, and what are we going to do to fix it?
I talked to a religious leader from the Bosnian community yesterday, and he said two things. One, it's very difficult for them right now, as you might imagine. But two, the underlying frustration, even above or different than this is happening more and more down there. It's not. Right. This was the most awful, depraved, tragic of them, but it's happening more and more in that particular neighborhood, and they want additional police. And I think the mayor and the chief of police are addressing that, hopefully. But another question he raised is, what are kids doing out at 13, 14, 15-year-old kids doing out at 1:30 in the morning, roaming the streets of St. Louis with nothing better to do than to carry a hammer and inflict pain? That's an issue that maybe a commission could look at. What's going on in our neighborhoods, in our community, that's the norm, that people are out roaming the streets at that age. You can't do anything but get in trouble at 1:30 in the morning as a teenager.
Right. Chad?
Boy, yeah, we're hitting on that. We're hitting. Right, I don't know the solutions to this. I mean, parenting is number one, obviously, but where are the parents? I don't know. But
that's the world the police live in, and so when they come across a situation, they are. This is the world they live in. They deal with these troublemakers, and that's the society they're charged to protect. And so they use a little extra violence. You can see why, in a sense, because this is the front lines, and this is who they're trying to protect.
I don't know where I heard this yesterday somewhere, radio. It's not my idea, but they were talking about going back to the Clinton era of more, not less police. The police are bad. Kind of more police. And in the days of, remember, midnight basketball and some of the other things, the community relations.
Programs, right.
It was a community effort as opposed to, let's blame the police. It's us versus them. I don't think it's that way. We got to get back to the days of us as a community and how can we work together.
That's Jay Kanzler, Chad Garrison, Jane Dueker. Back in a moment. Big 550 KTR.